Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. And we're thrilled to welcome a new member of our group, Julia, who is just introducing herself. And Julia is from Irvine, California. Marcia Melnick was just in your neighborhood, right? Isn't Irvine near San Diego, kind of? Marcia, we can't hear you. Well, Marcia, your microphone is not working. All right, okay. So, oh, I see. Now I'm looking at the chat and seeing everybody complain about my AC. Sorry about that. Okay, you have to make sure I have original sound off. Somebody remembered that's what the setting has to look like to not hear the AC. Thank you, everybody. Friday nights, it's horrible though. I mean, I'm turning the AC on and off because the room gets so hot because I'm schwitzing, you know? Anyway, I thought that as we came to the end of COVID, I was going to do a whole tour of my apartment so everybody could see how everything's related, make little packages up of my homemade pandemic granola for everybody. But guess what? We're nowhere near the end of COVID. So people, you're going to have to wait for my little granola packages. But I promise you, whenever we celebrate, everybody will get a little package of my homemade granola. I'm very proud of that. I feel like that's one of the great gifts God gave me of this pandemic, is now I make the best granola. So I'm very proud of that. So I'm just bragging a little bit. Sherry and Debbie, I'm not sure I'll get my granola to you, but you know, somebody will schlep back and forth. We'll figure it out. So Julia, just so you know, we have class members, Sherry and Debbie, who are in Tel Aviv. Darina, are you here this morning? Darina's in Bulgaria. Whoops.
Hello.
Hello, Darina. Who else is, and Ari is in, are you in Austin, Ari? I keep forgetting which part of Texas.
Yeah, Austin.
In Austin, Texas. So we have people from all over, and Sarah Siegel is moved to Memphis, Tennessee, right? Memphis? During the class, and she is so dedicated to being part of the class that while they were driving from New Jersey to Tennessee, she did the class in the car. So we're okay. Hello, everybody. So I know we have other people from other places. I can't remember. We have Philadelphia, we have Florida.
Cape Cod.
Cape Cod. But now, Julia, we have California. I don't think we had anybody from California before. So you are a very important West Coast anchor for us.
Don't forget New Jersey.
Who would forget New Jersey? I'm from New Jersey.
And the Catskills.
And the Catskills, okay. Aura Izrahi is on the beach somewhere. Beautiful beach you've got there, Aura. I don't know what.
And outside Boston.
Outside Boston.
No, not close enough to the Cape.
Yeah, but not a far drive. Yael, are your kids back from their various summer?
Yeah, last night was the first night that we were all in the same place at the same time in over a month.
Wow. And did everybody survive okay?
Loved it.
Oh, good. Did Edgar work out?
Talia just said this morning, can you send me on more trips like that?
Oh, fantastic. So for those who went on our trip to the South with Billy Planer, some of you remember that we did a 5-day trip to look at civil rights sites of the South, talk about racial justice in America. And I did that trip for teenagers and then for adults. He runs a summer program, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks, Yael, for teenagers, where they travel around the country, developing their critical thinking. They meet with somebody who is an NRA member and somebody who's fighting guns in America. They meet with somebody who's anti-abortion and somebody who's pro-choice. So they really are exposed to intellectual thinking and to analyze arguments and to listen respectfully. Hi there, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear about your trip.
Hi, yeah, I have a lot of stories.
Oh, I can't wait to hear them. I was just telling the whole group about Billy and the Edgar experience. Unfortunately, you guys were supposed to come to CBST when you were in New York, but our building is still closed and I was on vacation.
Yeah, I was told.
Well, great to see you, Bubala. Welcome home. Anyway, so Talia went on the teen trip to do all this intellectual and critical thinking about the most pressing and complicated social issues in America today. So I'm really proud of her. And our other kids, of course. You know, I'm like Garrison Keeler. All our kids are above average. Okay, so Psalm 25. So Julia, when Harold gets back, he'll send you, we have a list of books that we use that I don't even know where that lives unless somebody else knows this. But he will send out the texts in advance, though we encourage people to buy the books, for obvious reasons. But right now we're working with Richard Levy's translation, and we look at different translations of the Psalms and discuss them to different degrees for each Psalm. And today we're going to finish up Harold Levy, and I'm not Harold Levy. Hi, Harold Levy was a chancellor of the Board of Ed in New York City. Richard Levy. Just to review a little bit. So Richard Levy, one of the reasons I like looking at him to begin with, as we used to look at Safaria, but I got a little tired of Safaria's translations. But we get to see the Hebrew and English together. Safaria allows us to do all the other commentaries. So we're going to start by looking at the Levy. We notice, first of all, that he cares about the architecture of the original Psalm, tries to stick closely to it, but he's also trying to write poetry. And he's trying to write something that will be spiritually meaningful to the English reader. So just as we saw in the Hebrew, there's an acrostic. He shows us in the English the acrostic. And if anybody actually has a copy of Richard Levy, if you have it, you'll see in his commentary on page 90, for Adonai to my life ascends. So alone, my God, allow me, allow not. He emphasizes the A, although in the Hebrew, it's there as well. The Aleph is there 3 times. He really emphasizes the A to try and reflect that energy. And we talked just briefly to remember, there are many different reasons to use an acrostic. And I think there's about 9 or 10 other Psalms that are in the acrostic form. Not all of them are a complete acrostic as this one is. Honestly, we don't know if in the course of history a line got dropped. It's as simple as that, or if there's actually philosophical meaning to the missing, to the gap of some of the letters. And an acrostic was obviously useful in a time of oral traditions because it makes things easier to remember. It also has powerful spiritual meaning because the Hebrew alphabet is considered by the rabbis to be the source of creative force. You'll notice in the CBST Siddur, I think most of you now own one of these, correct? If you look, I did something on page 318 of the CBST Siddur, which, let me see how I can get it into the camera. Everybody see that? On the very last page of the Siddur is the Hebrew alphabet with the letter in Hebrew, the transliteration of the name of the letter, and how it's pronounced, 3 columns. It's Hasidic tradition to have in every Siddur the alphabet itself. And there's a very famous Hasidic story which says, I won't go through the whole story, but it celebrates a little child who came, not a little child, there's a story of a little child and then a young man or woman who came to the Beit Midrash and was illiterate and couldn't really read or write, but all they could do is recite the alphabet. And people made fun of that person for not being erudite. And the rabbi said to his students, don't make fun of this person, because just by reciting the alphabet with intention, with purpose, with a sense of focus, that person is praying with as much depth as those of you who are geniuses or Talmidei Chachamim, you're really knowledgeable Jews. God knows how to spell, is the famous line. God can put the letters all together in the right way. The question is the intention appropriate and powerful and meaningful? So the idea that the Hebrew alphabet is used both for the creation of the world, we're told that God used the alphabet to create the world. So focusing on the alphabet. And then somebody mentioned yesterday also the structure of an acrostic. It has a sense of completeness because you're going from Aleph to Taf, Aleph to Taf. full alphabet. We've had many of you studying Hebrew this year. And what was the name of your workbook that you used to study Hebrew? Did you use the Aleph Isn't Tough workbook series? That's a kind of a joke, not a joke, but it's a, what do you call it? A word play, because Aleph Tough, the Aleph Tough signifies the entire alphabet, a sense of completion. So by calling that workbook series for the study of Hebrew, Aleph Isn't Tough, the author's making a little bit of a joke. All right, Ben Shafran.
Apropos of your comment, God knows how to spell.
Yep.
This particular psalm is full of the personal plea to God to teach me your ways.
Yes.
In many different ways.
And I would say that, Ben, that's fantastic. And I think you could see that, especially reading the Hebrew as you did yesterday. If there's a theme to this psalm, so if you remember, we talked about different groupings of psalms. Some are psalms of lamentation. Some are psalms of praise, like the psalms typically of Psuke de Zimra and the psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat. And then there are things we call wisdom psalms, where the psalms are teaching us how to live a meaningful life. Wisdom psalms themselves are broken down into many different types. All of these categories, of course, some psalms fit into multiple categories. It's not a strict, this isn't strict. It's more of a general way to understand the variety. Some psalms are nationalist or historical psalms, and some psalms are called royal psalms. So Psalm 1, which we remember from way back when, if we remember way back on March 16th, when we started Psalm 1, is the classic wisdom psalm. If you remember that psalm from way back when, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach be'atzat rashaim. Happy or content or rooted is the person who does not walk with the advice of evil people and does not stand in the ways of those who do wrong. So it's a description of who's good and who's bad. This is what we're looking at in Psalm 25 and chapter 25 of Sefer Tehillim is a different kind of a wisdom psalm, but it's exactly what Ben is saying. This is rather than just reciting, as Psalm 1 is, what it would look like to be a good person and how to do that. This is a personal plea on behalf of the psalmist for God's help to get there. So it is a wisdom psalm, but a slightly different perspective on a wisdom psalm. And when we look at the different interpretations and understandings, we'll see that beautifully. But let's read it as that. This is asking for help to be directed. Ira?
Yeah, hi. I just noticed something
Hi, Ira.
interesting that I didn't notice yesterday, talking about the acrostic and Levy's sort of sticking to that format, that not only does he get the acrostic of the first letter of the line, but there are also in these first lines, like the last word in the first word, a line after the David is Esa, which starts with an Aleph, and
Yep.
he mimics that by using a word in English that also starts with an A.
Exactly. That is so insightful, Ira.
And he
He's
does
really
that
clever.
pretty consistently. I mean, I'm not seeing the whole psalm on the screen now, but in those first few lines, he almost always does that. So
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons I like Levy. I like them all because they give me different things, but I think Levy is a good place to start. And what he's choosing to do, Ira, as you point out, he's no longer translating Esa literally. He'd rather stick to the acrostic and to emphasize that. So he finds a word. It's not that the word doesn't fit. It does, because Esa means to look up or to lift up, right? So it's definitely a going upness. So why not ascends, right? But it's a little bit of a different thing. Sherry or Simon, whoever is behind the hand.
Yes, and I haven't had an opportunity to welcome you back and congratulate you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I
I'll
also
talk about it on Friday night because a lot of people are asking me about it. So maybe at services I'll talk about it.
and
We have a new member.
too, we just want to introduce you to our puppy Chloe, who just came yesterday.
Hi, Chloe.
And and third thing is about the psalm, and also following what Ira said.
Penny says welcome. Penny says welcome
Oh,
to the dog cohort of the Psalm group.
So in verse 2, because there's no bait, for some reason, you notice that I don't know if it's I don't think it's an exact translation. I think he's doing it because there is no bait.
Correct.
He does, you do I balance, upon you do I balance my trust, which is beautiful, and allow me not to bear humiliation, which I think
That's so interesting. I never so noticed that.
he's paying homage to
Yes,
the
that's I never noticed that. Yeah, absolutely true. But yes, there's no bet. And again, the rabbis go through there's a lot of fun commentary about why there's no bet. And it also could be as simple as it got lost in the scribal transmission of 2,000 years of a poem. But and I'm not going to focus on that because I really want to focus on the big psalm. I do want you to notice the acrostic, and Lisa Brown and Shep, and then we're going to keep going.
So I think there's 3 baits in verse 2. Elohai b'cha v'tachti el evosha. So I think there's a lot of baits in there.
Right, but the acrostic is the letter in the beginning.
But still, I mean, I wonder, as we're talking about how they thought about this, which we don't know.
Right. Good point. Fair point. Fair point. Fair point. But you're correct. That's a good point. Right. Interesting. Good point. I love this class. Shep?
Yeah, I noticed though, when he does the English translation, he doesn't do the Hebrew alphabetical order, which is Aleph. He dropped the bet, but Gimel Gam, but he uses the English C, clear.
Excellent point, Shep.
So why do you not do G?
Because he's trying to make this relevant to the English reader. This is the problem, and Marcia Melnick will remember this well. When you do translation that you want to be spiritually meaningful for somebody who's not fluent in the original language, you want to make it meaningful in a way that's culturally aware of the speaker of the language to which you're translating or interpreting. And if he had done that, someone who's an English speaker and not a Hebrew speaker would not understand why things were bolded. It would be nonsensical. So he's trying to bring that out, but within the context of an English speaker and the English language. And look, acrostic poetry is done in English too, right? I mean, that's obviously, it's a thing in English too. So he wants you to see this can be relevant to English, but you're absolutely right. He's not trying to go with the Hebrew alphabet. And likewise, the English alphabet has different numbers of letters than the Hebrew alphabet, but we're not going to get there. Okay, so let's move through this psalm a little bit and keep in mind what Ben just gave you the, what would we call that? The, what do you call that in writing an essay? The topic sentence. Ben gave us the topic sentence. This is a psalm that ultimately is about a person who wants to figure out the right way to live and asking for help to do that. That's the topic. Is that the right word? Topic sentence? You know what I mean. What, Ben? The theme. The theme. Good. Theme. Okay. Thank you, Ben. The theme. So let's have somebody read lines 1 through 6 in English. Volunteer? Linda Solomon. Or Ruth Berman. I see, because Ruth is there.
No, Ruth said no, so
Okay.
I'll read. Okay.
Just the first 6 lines.
Okay. Of David, Adonai, to you my life ascends. Alone, my God, upon you do I balance my trust. Allow me not to bear humiliation. Allow not my adversaries to rejoice over me. Clear from shame all who hope in you. Let all who deceive without cause be shamed. Direct me to penetrate your paths, Adonai. School me in the roads you take. Elevate my path toward your truth and school me, for you are the God of my deliverance. I wait hopefully for you all the day. Grant me the presence of your compassion, Adonai, and your covenantal love, for they have existed since the world began.
Thank you, Linda, beautiful. So first of all, this first line, so Le David, as we know, there are many different superscriptions. Levi wants to keep it in to show us the superscription, but he separates it with that gap to show he doesn't see it necessarily as part of the body of the text. Elecha Yud Hey Vav Hey Nafshi Esa. This goes back to, is Robin Baslow here today? I'm not sure if Robin's here today. But Robin, if you're here, this, as I said, I would get to this one of the question that you asked about.
Here, thank you.
Welcome. So your question will come up through this psalm. So this is an example of where Esa literally means lifting up. It could mean lifting up one's eyes. It could be lifting up anything. But in this case, we know this phrase well at CBS, Esa Einai, from the psalm much, much later in the book of Psalms. Esa Einai, I lift up my eyes, El Heharim, to the hills. And here's that phrase, to lift up. And there's always a sense of a contrast between the depths and lifting up. Sometimes, as I mentioned when Robin asked this question, it's deeply based on the reality of the natural landscape that somebody who lives an agricultural life feels very, very deeply, right? Where is up, where is down? What is it like to be down in the valley? What's the relative safety of being in a valley? And what's the relative safety, literally, and I'm not even talking vaguely. What's the reason that Jerusalem was placed on top of that hill, that mountain? In Israel, it's a mountain. In American terms, it would be a small hill. But what's the reason that the city was put where it is originally back in, the year 900 and something with King David? One of the obvious reasons is that a hill is a much safer fortification because you could see people coming up to attack. If you're down in a valley, you're much more vulnerable. So on the most basic level, being high up represents physical safety in a world in which you have to create fortifications based on the natural landscape. There's no iron dome technology or missiles or things like that, right? If you're higher up, you are physically more safe. So that's the first thing, that the looking up issue, that the sense of being in the valley. And you remember in Psalm 23, Begate Salmavet Lo Yirara Kiata, Imadi. In the valley of the shadows of in the valley of the shadows of death, I will not fear evil because you are with me. We studied Psalm 23 for a long time. So that image of being in a valley of the shadow of death immediately brings up this sense of insecurity and of fear, right? Because again, being up higher is safer, being low is much more vulnerable. So this also brings us to the sense of religious significance. And as I mentioned, many traditional religions ascribe a lot of holiness to mountains, to trees, to the heights of things. Having a sacred mountain is fundamental in traditional religions. Sacred mountains are a very big feature throughout traditional religions, including, of course, Judaism. Where was the Torah given? On Mount Sinai. Where is Jerusalem based, and where is the Dome of the Rock for Muslims? Where is Har Habayit for Jews? It's on top of Har Hamoriah or Har Habayit, not the mountain. So for Jews, mountains are significant because Jews have an ancient traditional religion that had to, over the course of thousands of years, transition into becoming a non-geographically based religion. For religions which are geographically based, we see lots of holiness related to physical sites. But as Jews started to move around, and you'll notice Christianity talks about, because Christianity is not place-based in the same way, because it was Christianity emerged at the time that people were leaving behind place-based religions, and this is a huge topic that I am not going to spend a huge amount of time on now. Christianity doesn't talk about Jerusalem. I mean, it's holy, of course, to go to Bethlehem. It's holy to, of course, follow the Via Dolorosa and Jesus's path, but it's not considered holier in a sense than anywhere else. Those are considered sites of pilgrimage, but not in the same way. For instance, that Muslims go to to Mecca and Medina, or I see, and I'm looking at the chat right now. So you see that you can all, this is fantastic. And think about the traditions of religions in Central and South America about various hills and mountains. So there is no question that hills and mountains have a religious significance. And then on top of that, there is the metaphysical or the spiritual sense of what it means to go from the depths, to emerge from the depths, and to experience a peak. And we all know what that's like, right? And how hard it is. If you're in the depths of depression, it is pretty hard to see anything but the most narrow cone that surrounds your life. And the struggle to get out of that depth and into something else is a really, really hard one. So I'm going to pause there for a second. Robin? Robin, you're muted, Bubala.
My question, yeah, okay, sorry. The question was about looking at going from the narrow place to,
well, right. So
and then going from the depths to, you know, and what the difference really is in terms of the Psalms, how that's viewed as a difference.
So narrow place is another metaphor for spiritual movement from a place of oppression, because we're told Mitzrayim, the center of the word for Egypt in Hebrew is the word for narrowness. So the central metaphor in Jewish philosophical rabbinic thought is that in order to leave slavery of any kind, bondage, oppression of any kind, we have to go through the narrow places that are dangerous and scary in order to emerge into achieving Mount Sinai, which is the peak, the height going up. So it's the process to go, it's the process of the journey. Okay, great, let's keep going. You'll notice that nafshi is translated my life. And remember that I've talked about that nefesh, which in modern Hebrew means soul. In biblical Hebrew, it does not just mean our souls. There's no separation of the corporate, physical, corporeal world and the spiritual world. So in biblical Hebrew, nefesh is not soul, but we'll see some of the translators turn to, but Levi is showing us my life ascends. It's not just about a spiritual thing. It's about the whole package. It's not dividing up physical and spiritual. Elohai b'cha batachti. Now betach, so look at the shoresh of batachti is bet, tet, chet, and very important word. Bitachon is security. And it is a deep sense of being secure. And actually in modern Hebrew, Sar Bitachon is the, what do you call him? The defense secretary, I think, right? Ben or Yael, correct me if I'm wrong about that. And Bitachon is security in Hebrew, and a bor Bitachon, the security pits are all along the streets. They're not used so much anymore to throw in things to explode. So, and in Hebrew, you say the word betach to mean definitely. But in biblical Hebrew, it continues to have this very strong sense of security. So Elohai, my God, in you, batachti, I put my security. I love this, balance my trust. That's very beautiful. And it's hard for me to read that. I'm going to read them. Al evosha. So busha is a shame or a humiliation or to be ashamed. So busha, allow me not. I see, it's interesting. So al yaltsu oiveli. Do not yaltsu oiveli. And he's changing the language a little bit in order to keep the A's there. So continue. So notice the structure here, and we'll look through with the psalm that the first thing is, to you my life ascends. To you, I balance my trust. And then the first thing is, what are the negative things we need help bearing? So I feel like this is very realistic. Don't allow me, help me deal with humiliation. Help me to deal with adversaries. Clear from shame all who hope in you. Help us not feel full of shame. One of the things you've heard me talk about a lot in the high holy days, in the Yamim Noraim, is that it's very hard to make change in our lives if we don't believe in ourselves. Change doesn't happen easily from guilt or from shame. Change happens from hopefulness and a sense of belief in ourselves and a sense of positive support. Change does not usually come because somebody feels guilty. It's just not the way that organic deep change happens. Okay, so line 4, direct me to penetrate your paths, Adonai, school me in the roads you take. Again, going back to Ben's comments, help me to know what the right paths are. Help me to know what roads to take. Elevate my path. All these are languages of path and movement toward your amitecha, emet is truth, limdoni, and lamdeni is to teach me, from the word lilmod, to teach me, for you are the God of my deliverance. Reassurance, I wait hopefully. Otcha, for you I wait all the day. Now we get to rachamecha v'chasdecha. These two words come up frequently. Chesed is covenantal love, and we'll see. Ari, did you get a chance to look into chesed at all?
I did, yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about chesed?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
we've got cats and dogs in this class also.
Yes, this is Alexi. He's trying to drink coffee milk. So chesed from the Shoresh Chet Samed Dalet, which I looked at Gesenius's Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon, and it offered the Shoresh meaning of eager and ardent desire, which I thought was very interesting. And the Safaria definition gives it, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, but also a reproach or a shame. And Jastrow had very similar definitions of like grace and kindness and love and charity. When it was translated into Greek in the Septuagint, they translated it as Elios, I think is how you would say it. And then went into Latin as misericordia, which is, I think, why we often see translations of Hesed as like mercy or merciful. But in the JPS Study Bible's introduction to the Psalms, they talked about it as in the Psalms, primarily when we see Chesed, it's most frequently used to describe love and mercy of Hashem towards humanity, which is where we get this idea of loving kindness. And then I found this definition from Daniel Elazar, who was a political scientist who studied covenants. And he wrote a paper about Chesed and Brit, covenant. And he said that it can be summarized as loving covenant obligation. And he writes that like there can be no Brit without Chesed. And it's sort of the antidote to a narrow legalism that can often be a problem for covenantal systems and relationships that would make them contractual rather than covenantal.
Wow, fantastic. So I've always studied Chesed in why the covenantal love, why Levi's using. Ari, that was fantastic. Let's give a round of applause for Ari's research yesterday on short notice. Thank you, Ari. It is used throughout the biblical context as meaning it's some part of a relationship. It's, as you pointed out, Ari, that's how I've always studied it, that what he's trying to do, and I have to look up because he does in one of the earlier places where he translates it that way, explain it, that it means that some kind of love that comes from the relationship. It's not just random, so to speak, and it's some deep in the relationship of this covenant between the Israelites and the people and God, that there's some kind of relationship. It's not exactly meaning quid pro quo, but more meaning that there is obligation and caring. And that's why a lot of, and then we have Gemilut Chasadim, which is where what Ari referred to, that loving acts of loving kindness are Gemilut Chasadim. Or we at CBST are trying to revive our Chesed, our Vad Chesed, our group that kind of spreads kindness and loving kindness, but not meaning it only in a charity way, but because it's part of a relationship. It's part of our obligation to do acts of kindness, not just to do it because it feels good, although it's not commanded in the same way. And I think that's what Levy's getting to. Covenantal love, meaning it's part of this relationship we have. I will look up, and if anybody else has Levy's book, he does refer to it in one of the earlier Psalms, but I didn't look for it before today's class. But thank you, Ari, that was fantastic. Thank you, thank you. And it would be great if you could share that in the Facebook group.
Absolutely.
Great. Ben, who looked up about gematria? Did somebody get a chance to do that for today?
Yes, I did.
Stephen, not Ben, right? Stephen, do you want to talk a little bit about gematria, what that is?
Okay, that's great. I'd like to share my screen.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
No, I'm doing it now. Okay. Hi. Gematria. When I was growing up as a kid in the Bronx, I always felt that Scrabble was a Jewish game. And I think I'm right. Gematria is, I have to get rid of this, is an alphanumeric code of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase according to its letters. Similar systems have been used in other languages and cultures. The Greek isopsephi, Harold's not here, so I can't do it right, and later derived from or inspired by Hebrew gematria, the Arabic abjad numerals, and the English gematria. The term gematria appears to come from the Greek geometria, and the concept can be found in writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, 427 BCE to 347 BCE. Historians believe that gematria was probably used in biblical times and was later adopted by other cultures. Gematria. So in gematria, each Hebrew letter is represented by a number. For example, Aleph is 1 and Bet is 2. One can then calculate the numerical value of a word by adding together the values of each letter in it. So here's a chart from the internet, which doesn't look very good, so I redid it. And 1 to 10 is Aleph to Yud. And then we have from 20 to 900. So you can see just about every configuration of letters can be done with the language, with the words. As a simple example, the Het represents 8 and the Yud represents 12, which gives us 18. In the world of biblical interpretation, some commentators may use numerical equivalences of words for further speculation. If a word's numerical value equals that of another word, a commentator might draw a connection between these two words and the verses in which they appear and use this to prove larger conceptual conclusions. Gematria is essential to Kabbalah. Kabbalistic cosmological beliefs presuppose that divine created the universe through the power of the Hebrew letters along with their numerical values. Many names of God and their permutations in Kabbalah have numerical values that are believed to contain potent power. The Sefer Yetzirah, believed to have been written in the 2nd century of the Common Era, was the first Kabbalistic text to elaborate a system of gematria.
Stephen, this is the book that talks about how the power of the letters created the world.
Exactly. The text is concerned with divine creation of the universe through the powers of the Hebrew
I
alphabet.
should read before I talk, sorry.
That's okay. It's a conversation. And with the permutations of God's name, the practitioner could use this knowledge to harness the power of creation. The Kabbalist Moses Cordovero of Safad, Israel, in 1542, compiled a handbook called Pardes Rimonim, the Garden of the Pomegranates, which includes many sections that expound on and elaborate of Gematria. And the Gematria is also used in prayer books. We see pages or verses written in the Hebrew letters, and also for dates. And I'm always excited on Rosh Hashanah when I can find out what the new year means by the word. And that's my little PowerPoint on Gematria.
Fabulous, Stephen. That was fantastic. And again, the reason this came up is because I talked yesterday about the power of the alphabet. And this is exactly right. Sefer Yetzirah, this Kabbalistic text, talks about how the alphabet itself created, God used the alphabet to create the world. And the power of Gematria is throughout Jewish life. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen, for expanding us. All right, we're going to go back to Levi and try and boogie through Levi in our last few minutes. Tosh, could we get Levi back up? So Levi continues.
I just need Stephen to stop screen sharing.
Oh, Stephen, you've got to stop. Would I?
Gosh, I don't know.
Good job, Stephen. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. I'm so happy we got to do it because I had to get up early in the morning.
So, Stephen, I need COVID to keep going just so I can learn how to screen share. Poo, poo, poo. I didn't mean that. Okay. Don't worry. Okay, so going into Psalm 7, verses 7 and 8. So continuing, hasten the sins of my youth and my rebellions away from your presence and awareness. This is a psalmist who is looking back on our life and saying, "Oy, Gewalt, if I look back on some of the things I've done, don't hold me responsible. May you hold me in your presence according to your covenantal love." Interesting, I looked in Levi, and Levi says on page 91 that he thinks that covenantal love, chesed, refers to the difference between chesed and rachamim. Rachamim, chesed is for a member of the covenant, so covenantal love, meaning the people of Israel, and rachamim is for everybody. So that's an interesting distinction I had never thought of before. So Levi keeps going. Justice guides the path of the humble, verse 9, and God schools the humble in the divine path. Knowing your roads will reveal your covenantal. Notice the overwhelming reference to covenant, to relationship, leading the faithful followers to keep your covenant. Lend your pardon. L'ma'an shemecha yud hei vav hei salachti. Forgive us. Forgive us. And this is a psalm that, as Ben pointed out, this psalm is asking for help, and a psalmist who is acknowledging with humility. In our youth, we did things for which we might not be so proud. In our lives up until this moment, we still need forgiveness, but understanding that our job is to keep trying to ascend towards the presence of the Holy One. So I'm going to go to verse 17. Raging are the sorrows of my heart. Rescue me from my distress. See my affliction and my toil, and raise up forgiveness for all my sins. See my enemies and how numerous they are. Take note of the violent hatred with which they hate me. And I have to say that until the Trump era, this psalm meant something only metaphorical to me. And now, wow, do I read this line quite differently. Uphold my life, liberate me, visit me not with shame, for I have taken refuge in you. Worthiness, Tam v'yosher, worthiness and innocence, may they preserve me. You are the one for whom I yearn. Zealously may you rescue Israel from all of our sorrows and troubles. All right, so we're going to end today with that. And you can see this is an appropriate psalm for this time of year. But what I'd like you to do today, this afternoon, if you have time, is to read through the this a little bit more carefully. If you have the book itself, read his commentary. And if you could look at Alter and then Fisher, well, that's where we're going to go for tomorrow, today. Julia, do you have the packet of readings? You probably didn't get that, right? Is Julia still here?
I was sent the Psalms for today.
You were, okay, so that's.
And I have a pretty good collection.
Okay, great.
Of Rabbi Spitz in my own study, so
Okay,
I'm
fantastic.
good.
And whatever you can do in the afternoon of looking at this, and then tomorrow we're going to jump into some of the other translations. I'll just ask you for a couple of minutes, any questions or comments, and maybe I'll look at the comments now. Without Harold here, I have to read the comments and make sure I'm not missing something. Questions or comments? Joan, I love the way worthiness and innocence are presented as independent beings who might help me. I know. It's me. Don't worry. It's as we be thinking about how you would put this into your voice in any way to see what things do we need help with in order to go on this path of forgiveness, both to offer forgiveness and to receive forgiveness. This is the question of the journey of this time of year. Rosh Chodesh Elul, by the way, is this coming weekend. And this is this psalm is kind of perfect for this week. What this psalm, for me, the psalm is asking, what are the obstacles that I have that I need help with before I can even get to the journey of tshuva? This is focusing a little bit on the help I need to even get to the process of tshuva. What are those obstacles? Cynicism, doubt, boredom, whatever they are, be real about it and be thinking as you struggle with this psalm's meaning to figure out what are the obstacles to even beginning the journey of tshuva, of repentance, and of trying to make some improvement and narrowing the gaps in our lives that we're so eager to do. Well, it's super fun to be back with everybody. Love seeing you, love studying with you. Randy, how's your infection? Getting better?
It's getting there. It's going to be a while. I actually started bleeding today, which was a bad sign, but.
Are you going to your office?
I'm here I'm in Kane.
In the office?
Yeah.
I thought it looked different. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, we're all praying for you. And thank you to our presenters today, to Stephen and to Ari, for those rich presentations. Make sure you put them in Facebook. Thank you for volunteering and thanks for doing it. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow morning. The room will stay open for a few minutes for those who want to stay and schmooze.